Hello. Where's the mouse? Continue.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can hear
Yeah, sorry, I was turning up the wrong thing on the mixer there. These
you.
sessions are always a little bit weird because obviously I'm using a different mic.
Yeah.
So it's always a little bit disconcerting.
Yeah. You never quite know how any of these things are going to go. It's the same at work as well.
Yeah,
What's it, the most used phrase over the last 12 months has been "you're on mute" or something like that.
I know. Yeah. So, I mean, can you hear me okay? Is the mic loud enough?
Yes, crystal clear. Yeah.
Great, great. Because your one seems to work in a really kind of nice omnidirectional way, but I think with this one, I just don't think it's designed to be hung upside down like this, or it's not. It never quite feels like it. In the past, it was always a bit like ropey.
I mean, it's definitely there's a lot more when you're right at it, but it's
Yeah.
good. It's good when you're not right at it. Though. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. So tonight, basically, I wanted to explore Broken Beat, but I've kind of touched on this before. But what I really was interested to show you all tonight is that some quite surprising people have actually been involved in Broken Beat in the early days, and also I wanted to sort of explain this sort of lineage of it, which is that it's interestingly a lot of kind of failed or not to say unwelcome, but drum and bass and jungle producers that didn't really fit in, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to start by asking both of you if you are aware of Broken Beat and if you can try and maybe describe it to me, if that's possible.
I think I am. I thought I did. I thought it was kind of like Four Hero kind of stuff. Um, is that kind of about right?
Yeah, I mean that For
Like,
Hero definitely credited as one of the kind of founding people of Broken Beat as such, but it's a funny one because in the early days it wasn't really called Broken Beat, to be honest. It didn't really have a name. And it was a collection of producers and DJs from all over the world who had something in common. Really, it was like a kind of language, if that makes sense. So
what kind of era are you talking about, Danny?
I'm talking
What?
about the mid to late '90s.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Essentially, I mean, I can't sort of pin it down exactly, but what I would say is m- most of when it was being formed into a genre, it was mostly around kind of like 98, 99 kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there is earlier stuff. Afronaut, for example, who was the founder of Bugs in the Attic, or one of the founders,
yeah, yeah,
was doing housey stuff before obviously Broken Beat started, and also Phil Asher, rest in peace. He was involved in the kind of UK house scene for years before anything kind of broken started to happen. Yeah, so I just want to sort of say like that. The reason I love Broken Beat is because it's like to me it's like most of the different types of dance music that I like all put in a blender, if that makes sense. Um,
What's your definition of it? How would you recognize
well,
it?
it's usually house tempo. It has syncopated drum beats. It has lots of snares. It's heavily influenced by 70s jazz, funk, and fusion. Um, there's so many different descriptions of what it is. I mean, I'm going to try and show you tonight the full range of it. It's very difficult to show you the full range of it. There's so many offshoots. There's so many sort of splinters. I mean, if you think that like there was people in Germany doing it, there was people in Japan doing it, there was people in Montreal doing it, there was people, there was all these different people making it, and they all had a completely different take on it. What's really interesting, I think I've got it here. Madlib, the celebrated US hip hop producer, he even had a crack at it. He did a project called DJ Rels, which was absolutely amazing. Actually, some of my favorite Broken Beat ever. But I don't even know if you could call it Broken Beat. And that's the thing. A lot of the things that I like as Broken Beat, it's a bit like disco. People say disco. And basically anything that's live and is a bit dodgy from the 80s is classed as disco. Whereas actually, it might be new wave, it might be jazz funk, but it seems to all operate under the umbrella of disco. Broken Beat, I mean, you've got new jazz, you've got, you know, jazz dance, you've got, freestyle, as it was called. I mean, before it was called broken beat, it was even called fusion, because they felt it was some kind of continuation of jazz fusion, which is jazz and rock mixed together. I mean, that's not really an accurate description of it, but yeah. So I just wanted to sort of chat with you a little bit before we get started about it, because the reason I think it's really valuable is because it came from the ashes of drum and bass. It has a massive UK garage crossover as well. For example, UK Funky, which sort of started, I don't know, about 10 years ago. I can't remember when it started, but one of the biggest UK funky tracks ever is called Seagullizer by Apple. And he literally just sampled the whole drum beat from a really famous broken beat track called Future Rage by DKD, which is Digo, Kaidi, and Daz IQ, who are all kind of connected to Bugs in the Attic and the West London thing. So if you imagine that, like, UK funky is a completely different genre of music, but the drum beat for it, like the equivalent of like the Amen or something, was actually just ripped off from a broken beat track. So it has so many sort of connections. And yeah, I mean, basically, it's classed as it was often called the West London sound. That was because there was a distribution company called Goya, and they basically P&D'd loads of labels. Unfortunately, they went out of business around, I think it was 2006, 2007, because people weren't buying enough of the records, But I'll just go to my racks. If you just give me a sec. I've got here. These are all white labels, and most of them are through Goya. And if I can find one, here you go. This was like the holy grail when you were a broken beat DJ. So they would basically do maybe like 100 of these, or I don't even know if it was that. I actually sometimes think I think these might have even just been the test pressings. So there might have only been 10 of these or 20 of these. So I've got quite a few here, and yeah, I mean, some of them don't have the blue label, but can you see Goya Music Distribution there? So Goya was really, really, really important because they obviously P&D'd loads of labels, and they were based in a place called the Saga Centre in Ladbroke Grove, and they had this big crossover with the Notting Hill Carnival. So every year at Notting Hill Carnival, there was a Goya stage, or I think it was called Co-op. That was one of the big nights that, like, there was at Plastic People, sort of like Metalheads. What's interesting about Plastic People, by the way, is both broken beat and dubstep were kind of born there, because broken beat was Co-op, which was originally at the Velvet Rooms, which I think was where Metalheads was as well at some point, but they moved to Plastic People. And then also dubstep had this night called Forward. So two kind of really quintessential UK types of music were sort of developed in this very small club. And a lot of the tracks that were being played at Co-op, for example, they never got released. They were just literally made for that club night. So they would just make a dub, some kind of mad tune, and it would get played for a couple of weeks, and then that would no one would ever hear it again. So there's a lot of stuff that never got released, and it was the same with the dubstep guys. I'm just going to stick something on then from the early days, and it's a group called Neon Fusion, and I think it's definitely Afronaut. I'm just going to see who was in Neon Fusion. So this is one of, like, I would say probably one of the most early broken beat albums. I mean, if you want to class it as broken beat, I just want to see who's actually in it. Okay, so it's Alex Funcy, Kaidi Tatum, and Orrin Walters. So Orrin Walters is Afronaut. Afronaut did a really famous track on R&S called Transcend Me, which was like a massive hit. And Kaidi Tatum is, keyboard player for hire on so many broken beat tracks. He's now hanging out with Jazzy Jeff and people like that in Atlanta. Kaidi Tatum is basically a legend. And then Alex Funcy was one of Bugs in the Attic. You might have heard of Bugs in the Attic. So I'm going to stick a track on from this, and I'll find it on Discogs so you can have a look at it. Yeah, there's a really cool track called The Future Ain't the Same as It Used to Be. So it's a nice tune. Yeah, here we go. And by the way, this is on a great label called Laws of Motion, or Laws in Motion. I'm just going to check again. I'm really worried about getting things wrong, so I just want to fact check. Yeah, Laws of Motion, and that was a great label that people like Phil Asher released a lot on, and also Modaji, who unfortunately passed away fairly recently as well. If you've never heard of Modaji, you have to check Modaji. And yeah, this is like a really early sound, and because I really like the early stuff because it was much more jazzy and it wasn't so kind of banging. It wasn't like distilled to, if you fast forward to say 2002, a lot of the tunes sounded the same. So I think this is about 98, so it's years ago. And is that an okay volume, guys? Yeah. Something that characterized a lot of this old stuff as well is the vocals. So IG Culture did the vocals on this, and he was a rapper in a group called Dodge City Productions. So yeah, there was a lot of people getting on the mic who were also producers, which is really cool. Beg your pardon, it was 1999. So yeah, that's an example of some really early stuff. I think it's all kind of hardware sampler based. You can really hear the difference later on when people kind of got more powerful computers and everything got a bit more stripped down. But yeah, on this one, I think there's something about the sound of the early stuff which I like, but it's not maybe so well engineered. Take you miles away, if you wanna go, the future. Okay, yeah. So I just want to ask you guys: have you heard any music like that before? Is it familiar? Is it strange?
It's familiar. There used to be a night up here, probably around about this time, called "Hold It Down," which was Bugs in the Attic, and it was all centered around this sort of sound. So it's got quite. There's been bits of it bubbling up here for a long time.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone from outside of the UK familiar with this sound? Mikhail?
Yeah, I guess I heard something like that back in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah. So I think what I really like about it, and I think this is something that's maybe a little bit overlooked, is how international it was, but how small the scene was, and everyone had their own different take on it. So next, I'm going to play you something from Germany from the same year, and it's by someone that you may remember, Jazzanova. It's called Fedim's Flight, and it was their first ever single. And I'm so proud of this. I seem to have some kind of promo copy, which is interesting because it says $9.99 on it, which was a hell of a lot of money for a record, I think, in 1999. Even in the early 2000s, it was £5 for a UK single and $7.49 for an import. So $9.99. And I've got a few things with this thing on it. I don't know if you can see that barcodey thing. It's like some kind of distributor copy or something. I've got quite a few records like that with the same thing on it, and they're all really good. So it's yeah, I think if I look in my somewhere in here, if I can find it, I think it's, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but I've got another like white label with exactly the same thing on it. But I'll stick it on anyway, so you can check this out. So this is completely different, you know, but you can sort of hear how people might appreciate it from the same scene. Has anyone heard this, by the way? I think it's probably one of my favorite Jazzanova tracks, and it's their first one. Okay, so according to Discogs, it's 97. I had no idea. I thought it was 99. That was 3 years after I'd left school. I mean, I still think that sounds amazing. It doesn't sound dated at all. Listen to how good the engineering is. So yeah, I mean, I have the feeling that as well, soulful music seems to be a little bit more acceptable these days, which I think is amazing. So feels a bit full circle. I just really think that everybody in the group, you know, no matter what you're making, you can really benefit from listening to this kind of music, some jazz, some funk, some whatever, because the programming, the kind of musicality of it, the syncopation, you know, you're not always going to hear that in house music, unfortunately. House music can be quite, you know, sort of reduced and stripped down. So yeah, I just wanted to share some stuff with you all tonight to sort of hopefully inspire your productions a little bit. So next I'm going to take you to Switzerland, to it's a Mustang, which is Alex Attius. And Alex Attius is an amazing producer, by the way. I mean, he can make, like all the Broken Beat guys, you know, he can make techno, he can make house, he can make soulful stuff. Obviously Broken Beat. So and his brother Stefan is also a really good producer, and they're still going, by the way. They've got a label called Visions, which I bought a lot of back in the day, and they've restarted the label, and it's a little bit like Neroli. It's that sort of soulful but really kind of high quality, so like Trinidadian deep, that sort of vibe, the Ron Trent vibe a little bit, I would say. But everything Alex Attius does is just pure quality. So he's a kind of like buy on site kind of producer, but always weird, never normal. So I'm going to stick a track on by Alex Attius, and it's on Bittersweet, I think. No, it's on Main Squeeze. So it's on IG Culture's label, one of his old labels from back in the day. Main Squeeze is an amazing label, by the way. You should definitely investigate that label. All the labels pretty much that I'm playing you on this are unfortunately defunct. They're all pretty much gone, apart from maybe Neroli, which is run by Volkov, aka Isolate. And Volkov had a bit of a resurgence in his career the last 4 or 5 years because of, you know, kind of Antal, Rush Hour, that kind of, you know, rotary mixer kind of floating points, for want of a better word, the sort of digger kind of vibe. So Volkov got a lot of attention again, which is great. Played at Deckmantle selectors and stuff like that. So I don't know if you don't know Volkov, but he's a really professional, amazing DJ. I mean, every time I've seen him play, it's just like class, you know, very classy. So I'm going to stick on this track by Alex Attius. And yeah, if anyone's got any thoughts, you know, feel free to jump on, have a chat. If you want to share something, you know, yourselves, and then maybe something that fits in, you know, feel free. So I'll play the A side first because it's really a beautiful track. It's got Vanessa Freeman on the vocals. Vanessa Freeman is, she's been in so many different groups, but she's like quite a session vocalist from London. But she's absolutely amazing vocalist, like really classy. That's one thing I'd say about the Broken Beat scene is they did have some really amazing vocalists. There's a lady called Bembe Segway who did a lot of stuff. There's also a lady called Face who did stuff with 4Hero, and you know, Face is like phenomenal, but they don't really appear on many other people's records, so it sort of shows you how close knit it was. And yeah, like it was all about knowing people, I think. So, you know, if you were friends with the person, they would sing on your tracks. And yeah, I think on this one, you'll hear the drum and bass influence. Alex Attius was in a group called, I think they were called the Grand Popo Football Club, sort of making weird drum and bass. It wasn't really UK hard drum and bass, it was more jazzy stuff. Yeah, I'll have a look on Discogs in a sec. And I've never met Alex Attius, right? But he's a really friendly guy, and it's like he's the sort of person that you can send him a message and he'll actually reply. So I think he seems like a really, really nice chap. Grand Popo Football Club. It was the Bel Air Project. Yeah, check out Bel Air Project if you know, they're really good as well. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Carl Craig, but I think this kind of music isn't that far off some of Carl Craig's stuff. The sort of jazz influenced Carl Craig back in the day.
On a different shore, new day, joy. Fire building up inside, be real, feel love. Beauty flows within us all. Can you feel the sun? Can you feel the sun?
So yeah, I mean, Vanessa Freeman, it doesn't really get much better than that for me. I mean, the tone. So yeah, next up I'm going to take you to Amsterdam, and I've got a couple of things I want to play you. One is by Aardvark. Has anybody here heard of Aardvark? Vinny's typing. But yeah, Aardvark, he's basically called Mike Kivitz, and he is an amazing producer, like really amazing. And he was in a group called Red Nose District, who were one of my favorite groups from Amsterdam. And this is the early 2000s. And Red Nose District was Kid Sublime, Aardvark, and Steven de Pevin, who became a 1-2-3. So a 1-2-3, you should check him out. He's doing stuff on Deck Mantle and Rush Hour. Really classy producer. I mean, I really rate him. And they're all really good DJs as well. So Aardvark is a reclusive kind of Johnny Depp looking quite kind of guy. Like, he's got tattoos on his hands. He looks a bit piratey. And he's a kind of wandering spirit. Like, he lived in Bali for a while. I think he's a nomadic type of guy. I think he said that he has kind of, you know, depression and anxiety stuff. So he doesn't always make music, but Aardvark's unbelievable. I mean, he did this series called Bloom, which is when dubstep was kind of blowing up, and he kind of did his own take on dubstep, and it was, in my opinion, much better than the UK stuff, because obviously he's like a really skillful producer. He's made a lot of techno, made a lot of house, made a lot of broken beat, made a lot of hip hop as well. So the thing I'm going to stick on is on a label called Delsin. Now, again, this is another shocker. Delsin are like, they've released Red Shape and stuff like that. Delsin are kind of classed as a Dutch techno label. But back in the day, it seems like everybody liked broken beat. So yeah, Delsin were releasing more jazzy broken beat stuff back in the day. So I'm going to stick this, this EP is much more coming from a techno angle. So this is more Detroit-y, kind of American, kind of like Carl Craig again, kind of weird sort of like a sort of dark image of the future. It always reminds me of like RoboCop or something. I don't know if you remember the RoboCop computer game. There was a RoboCop computer game when I was young, and it had really dark music on it, so it reminds me a bit of that. But yeah, this is a really good. I really like this EP. This is like quality, and the artwork as well is. I don't know if you can see that, but it's quite sort of dark, twisted-looking future art. You know. And do you know why he's called Aardvark? So that he would be always first. Clever guy. Because it's double A. Coming up on this, there's this amazing switch into some really kind of dark strings. I love it, but it is pretty. I mean, you can tell that he's had some sadness. This whole EP is really cool. I'm going to stick a couple of things more on just to give you a little blast. This is more beatsy stuff. This one is one I played a lot. I guess it's kind of techno, really, isn't it? So yeah, his last release was on Deep Medi, which is Mala's label, so probably dubstep again. it's pretty jazzy. Okay, so the next thing I was going to play you is Believe It or Not by Dixon, right? So Dixon, before Innovisions, was part of the Sonar Collective crew and was a house DJ, actually, I think, or, broken beat, jazzy. He was a resident of VMF, which was like a really famous Berlin club. So Dixon, never really produced anything much himself. He always did remixes or edits. So this is on this Sonar Collective kind of compilation, which has Ame on it as well. And I don't know if you know this, but before Ame, it's a bit like Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk did a couple of krautrock albums. I think Kraftwerk 1, Kraftwerk 2, the ones with the traffic cones on the cover. And then when they developed that sort of, robot sound, they deleted the albums and tried to erase any evidence because they didn't like the fact they hadn't got it right then at that point because they weren't really famous and successful. So Ame and Dixon, before they did Innovisions, they were doing kind of, more like, so Ame were doing kind of metro area kind of rip-off stuff, like really genuinely sounds just like metro area, not quite as good. So I think that's quite funny, actually, because you would never guess that they would go from making this kind of metro area stuff to then these kind of like super trancey kind of massive Euro tunes. But there you go. Yeah, so I'm going to play this. It's by Raz. It's called Do Your Dance, and it's the Dixless main vinyl mix. I didn't ever hear the original, so I've got no idea how much work Dixon did on it, but you would never imagine, when you hear this tune, you can't imagine that Dixon would be involved with this.
Mothers of all mothers, you have labored for self, family, and others. Despite what your soul has seen and your heart has felt, you have never stopped loving. You have never stopped loving. Your back has been tested, yet like years old rubber dough, you keep bouncing back, taking every blow, every lash, like a warrior, a true Samaria warrior. Do your thing, do your dance, do your thing.
But it does have that African kalimba vibe, which I actually released a track on their label called Kalimba. So, it's probably part of the reason why they released it. They love the kalimba,
Do your thing. Come on, do your dance.
So yeah, I was always quite surprised that this was Dixon, to be honest. He did stuff with Georg Levin. They were called Wahoo. Georg Levin now runs a kind of sync advertising company. So when I met Georg Levin eventually in Berlin, he was this really sort of smart, kind of respectable guy. It was quite hard to believe that him and Dixon were once kind of, you know, kind of crazy DJ type people. Yeah, it's funny. Dixon owned like a kind of football, but like a sports bar in Berlin, because he's really into football. I don't know if you know this, by the way, that Dixon could have been a professional footballer and was a very, very accomplished long distance runner, they said. So yeah, he was, because I think Dixon's from East Germany. So they were like, you know, at primary school, they were like really pushed into sport. They even had, I don't know if you know about this, but people were even given, you know, hormones in East Germany to make them better at sport, to have the sort of dominance in the Olympics and things like that. So it's quite mad what was going on there, you know, behind the Iron Curtain and all that. So yeah, next up I'm going to take you to Toronto, to Canada, for one of my favourite producers of all time, actually, a guy called Moonstar, aka Kevin Moon. I once sent him a really, you know, it's not a long email, but a kind of, you know, an email going, hey man, really into your music, you know, you've been such an inspiration, thank you so much. No reply. But it's all good. Yeah, that's quite funny. I was thinking, man, you know, it was like, he didn't even say anything. But yeah, he had a label called Public Transit Recordings, which I don't know if it's still going or not, but amazing label. Public Transit Recordings is fire. Not just broken beat, house and techno as well. And he did a famous track on not on Rush Hour, on Sonar Collective called it looks like it's Detroit, but it's actually Det Riot, I think. So yeah, it's not Detroit. But yeah, if anyone's heard Detroit by Moonstar, it's an absolute classic. Like, it's ridiculous tune. But I'm going to play something from, it's called the DuPont and Christie EP. And it's got Tash on vocals, who I think might be his girlfriend. But yeah, check this out. It's amazing. So Moonstar was the most ridiculous drum programmer ever, and he was coming from the hip-hop school, so it was all done on hardware samplers. And the way that he programmed the beats, if you listen to how smooth that is, he is not smooth, Moonstar. So check this out. And yeah, if you want inspiration with your, you know, programming and sampling, I really recommend, you know, you check out some sample-based producers, because they're working with such repetitive sounds that they've had to develop these kind of really amazing, accomplished, you know, rhythms and programming techniques, and basically like a live band, because they didn't maybe have the skill to play the drums themselves, you know. So I think it's for me, it's always been really inspiring for programming, you know. And this is great. There's also a good sense of humor in his music.
Those orchestra boys, they really know how to swing it, baby.
I don't know if you can see that, by the way, but there's a photo of him, and he looks like he's had a few raves, put it that way.
Future jazz, baby.
Okay, so you get the idea. I really like the US stuff because they were coming from, I guess, more of a kind of black American jazz angle, if that makes sense, rather than some of the European stuff, especially like, you know, the stuff from Austria and Germany was kind of more a bit smooth, kind of classy jazz. So I really like the rawness of some of the American stuff. So next up I'm going to play something by a guy called Just One, aka Justin Chapman, who was in a group called Kemet Just, and they did some great stuff, like house stuff. But he did some broken beat stuff on his own called Just One. Yeah, he released it on Neroli, which is Volkov's label. And yeah, really cool, like definitely a different style, which for me was really refreshing because the UK stuff, you know, a lot of it was quite similar. It was a lot of the same people playing on it. So I really liked hearing the stuff from, you know, out around the world.
Wow, we jazzing now. Those orchestra boys, they really know how to swing it, baby.
Yeah, check the drum programming, by the way. So this is a bit more like house, I guess. It's more banging. I played this at Melt Festival in Germany, like 11 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and yeah, it was great because I don't think anyone else was playing stuff like this there. So yeah, this is Just One, Love to Love You. Yeah, tonight I've deliberately tried to not play stuff because I was thinking, yeah, I could play Digo, Kaidi and all, you know, all the UK stuff, but I'm quite interested in the stuff that no one even knows about the people, you know what I mean? Or they're a bit less known, you know? But bear in mind that if you're in the broken beat scene, you know, these people are all pretty well known.
To tell you just what you mean to me, so just sit back and hear.
But still jazzy.
Since you came into my life, your love has followed me. Even when I walk away, you still return to me. Now the time has come for me to give my life to you. All those situations you keep getting me through, and I'm giving you thanks, and I'm giving you praise, and I'm giving you, and I love you. And I love to love you, and I love to love you, and I
Yeah, big tune this.
And I love to love you, love. And I love to love you.
2004.
I love to love you, love. And I love to love you, love. And I love to love you, love. And I
Available for 89 pence.
love to love your love.
Looks like it was on Carl Craig's Fabric, though. It's pretty cool.
I love to love your love.
Yeah, I really like the Just One stuff. I mean, some of his singing is a little bit dodgy at times, and his acoustic guitar playing, but it's jazz, you know.
How can I give back to you what you give to me? Tell me what am I supposed to do? Do you realize just what your love has done to me? Giving me
Okay, so next up, I'm going to take you to Stuttgart. So can anyone think of a really famous producer from Stuttgart? Not Soul Fiction, rest in peace, Michel. Don't know if you all know, by the way, but unfortunately Soul Fiction recently passed away from cancer. Yeah, and he was a really, really amazing, influential producer. He ran a label called Philpot, which was very influenced by Detroit music, so a lot of kind of, you know, dusty, sample-based house. A lot of German artists on Philpot, which was great. But yeah, so unfortunately, Michel passed away very recently, so there's been a bit of an outpouring of grief. A lot of people I know were really close with him. And it's weird because, you know, I've met him quite a few times, you know. Quite a lot of these people that have passed away recently, you know, I knew them, know them really well, but I knew them, you know, so it's a strange feeling when people whose records that you've bought, that you've been inspired by, like, you know, Phil Asher, Weatherall and that, and they're not here anymore. So rest in peace to all of them. So yeah, Stuttgart. Can anyone think of a really famous producer from Stuttgart? Come on, folks. Anyone?
Danilo Plateau.
Woo! Yes, 10 points.
I mean, he's the only the only producer I know from Stuttgart.
Did you know that he was doing stuff before he was Motor City Drum Ensemble?
Vaguely, very vaguely.
He was in a duo called Inverse Cinematics, and he was being played. He did a release on Fluidance called Shoot the Pianist when I think he was 16. So that's the thing with Danilo that people don't realize is he was kind of a bit like Andreas, you know. He was like massive when he was like 18. And that does strange things to you. So, yeah, he was in a group called Inverse Cinematics, and they did a track called Shoot the Pianist, and it was a bit of a hit, you know. Giles Peterson played it everywhere. And then, yeah, so the record I want to play you is, have any of you heard of Pablo Valentino?
Yes.
Pablo Valentino runs a label called Faces. He also ran MCDE for Danilo. And it's really interesting, the connections, right? The drummer in my Hot Coins band, Jens Dole, who also released on my Bergerac label, James Dole. I shared the EP with you guys at some point. I don't know if anyone downloaded it, but I gave some Bandcamp links. So Jens and Danilo are really, really old friends. So Jens played drums on a lot of the Inverse Cinematic stuff. So it's really bizarre because obviously when, you know, years later, I was in Berlin in a band with this guy in 2013. And I was buying records that he played drums on in like 2003 or something like that. So it's mad the links. And Danilo, yeah, he's just got so many connections. Like City Fly booked him years ago. My friend Jonna from City Fly, they booked him, you know, for like 400 quid just before he blew up. You know, and they had a funny story about, you know, he went off on his own in Leicester and they didn't know where he was and they had to go looking for him and stuff like that. So, you know, it's funny when you think about all these people and they end up doing, you know, DJ kicks and all these massive things. So he was in a group with Pablo Valentino called Hipster Wonkers, right? And it's on this Dutch label called Flying High. And honestly, this is a bloody great label. It was, again, it's not really broken beat. It's kind of hip hop I don't know what you call it really. It's sort of weirdo, funky. But the hipster Wonka tune is called Hot Face, and this is the funny thing. The remix is by Dog Days, and has anyone heard of Dog Days? No. So Dog Days, aka Dave Heusman, who became a Made Up Sound and 2562. So he came from Broken Beat and ended up being really big on the kind of dubstep scene, and then ended up becoming a kind of, a pioneer for sort of broken techno, I guess you could call it. If you're not familiar with a Made Up Sound, very, very tricky, well done stuff. Very forward thinking. And he was, really successful. He did stuff on 50 Weapons, played at Berghain loads, really smashed it. But Dave's actually an architect in real life. And I remember going round to his flat. It's funny, he invited me into his flat just as he was moving out of Berlin back to The Hague. And I remember thinking, I bet he only invited me in because he's leaving the city. But we it's funny to sort of, he was like an architect, and his monitors were Alesis, and I couldn't believe it, because Made Up Sound is like, amazing mix engineer. And when I saw his setup, and I mean, obviously now he's probably got like, some Neumanns or some, but I remember him sort of saying to me, yeah, you're probably surprised, aren't you? And because like the top end on his stuff, it's amazing. I've never heard such clean top end, but that isn't nasty on your ears. I don't know how he does it. So I'm going to play you a little bit of Hot Face by Hipster Wonkers. And Danilo told me that him and Pablo were like completely partying when they made the tune. So they literally were actually having a party. He said there was like, lots of things going on, it was quite a wild party. So they were somehow producing a track and partying at the same time. So that, and by partying, they don't just mean, getting wrecked. They were actually like hanging around and talking to people at a party. So I think it's quite funny. And this is from, does it have the date on it? I'll look it up. Oh yeah, 2005. Yeah. I don't even know. This isn't really Broken Beat. I don't know what it is really. Might hear some kind of, how he could become Motor City Drum Ensemble from this. The sort of dark Detroit-y pads. So I don't know if you can see on this one, the Inverse Cinematics, bass by Stefan Illner, drums by Jens Dohler. They were the rhythm section for my Hot Coins band in 2013. So mad. I bought this record when it came out. Vocal Clack. Okay, so I'll play you the Dog Days remix. So, I mean, already he was a master. And the Dog Days stuff, he doesn't like it, Dave. So he gave me a CD years ago with some Dog Days stuff on it. And I think I played it on a mix or something. And he was really pissed off and sent me a message and said, like, remove my name from the track listing because he didn't want people to know that track was by him. Again, doing the kind of doing the Kraftwerk. So yeah, that album that you see there, the CD one in Dog We Trust, amazing. I don't think I've got it digitally. I've got the CD though somewhere. But yeah, really good album that. So yeah, this is a great label, Flying Hot. Okay, folks. So yeah, any thoughts? Any feelings? Is it just some stupid jazzy stuff? Don't all shout out at once. No one wants to talk. Okay.
It's all quite frenetic.
Yeah.
Which is a refreshing change to certainly a lot of the things that I do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of energy in it, and I mean, you have to remember that at these kind of nights, they also mixed in house tunes. It's hard to describe how diverse it was. They would play old jazz funk records. They would play Latin stuff. You know, it wasn't just this is the electronic end of it, but there was a hell of a lot of diversity. And there's a track by Cameo called Sound Table, which is like broken. Yeah. And that used to get dropped, and it's by Cameo, and it's a really kind of it's like a jazz dance tune. So it was, I loved it. I loved this scene because it was just, you could play anything at these nights as long as it was not standard house, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it's like these hybrid genres, which are very loose in their definition, which just leads to variety, really. Yeah,
well, the DJs as well. Domu, when he was still active, I mean, unbelievable. And I tell you who was a really good DJ as well. He wasn't quite on the broken beat scene, but was sort of touching on it, was Quantic. Quantic around 2004 was, I mean, wow, you know, like really like cutting 45 records and, you know, like really technically advanced DJ Quantic.
It's like True Thoughts Quantic, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, he was playing stuff like this, you know, like not the whole set, but you know, he played Inverse Cinematics. I remember he played a thing off that Vogelhaufen album that I just showed you, the one with my friends playing, you know, on it. You know, that was how I actually discovered that album, was because of Quantic playing it. I was like, whoa, what's that? You know? So I'm going to stick on something again by, this is a Moonstar remix. It's class. I mean, it's on Future Sounds of Jazz Volume 10 on Compost. Yeah, and but it's quite a fast tune, and it's not really. I wouldn't say it's broken beat. I don't know what it is really, like broken Latin techno or something. But this is definitely one of Moonstar's finest moments. It's very subtle. This compilation is unbelievable, by the way. Compiled by Michael Reinboth, who ran Compost Records, or runs Compost Records. Michael Reinboth. I met him and Michael Rutten when I played the Worldwide Awards for Giles Peterson. Looking after my parents, like literally both of them hanging out with my parents while I DJ'd, and Ashley Beadle as well, really, really nice people. I had no idea this was on Raw Fusion. Raw Fusion was run by Mad Matt, who then went on to do Local Talk. He also ran Juggling, which was a really good hip-hop label. Mad Matt's is from Stockholm. And good friend of mine. It's funny, when I moved to Berlin, I got to know like so many people that, I knew their music and I bought their records. But yeah, moving to Berlin really... I don't know. It's a great place to get connections. I don't know about now. So yeah, this bit coming up. It's again proper deep as hell at the end. And I wouldn't really call this broken beat. I would call it's more like electronic Latin or something. But huge fun to DJ with this kind of music. Yeah, that bit. And it's only on for about 20 seconds. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't really get that vibe in any other type of music, really. It's something about, this kind of, I don't know what you call it, really. Kind of, it's not, I mean, it's not broken beat, is it? It's something, a lot of it was on, there's a really good label called Ubiquity. Ubiquity released a lot of, there's a guy called, it's Pitar, hyphen Taah. It's Chris Bran, who you might know from Wamdu Project, Wamdu Kids. They did King of the Castle. Must be the reason you're the king of my castle. But Wamdu, that was Wamdu Kids, I think. Or Wamdu Project. I can't remember, but that was like the pop thing. But if you check out Wamdu Kids, bloody hell, amazing stuff. And then he did this whole album, a few albums as Pitar, which was on Ubiquity, and proper amazing, like really atmospheric, jazzy kind of. I don't know what it's not broken beat at all. It's more film music, I would say. So I was going to stick on next. Anyone any questions, by the way? Anything? Anyone? Any information you want to know? No? Okay. And by the way, I am pretty encyclopedic about a lot of genres of music. So not all of them, obviously, but feel free to suggest some genres that we can cover in future sessions, because if you want to have some deep digging, like even just doing the broken beat thing tonight, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had that record, like, oh wow, it's like, it's mad if you think that 20 records, right, cost like 100 quid. So imagine if you've got a few thousand records, imagine how much money you spent on records, back in the day when you didn't have a mobile phone and, you were kind of on low funds, Okay, so I want to play you the DJ Rels, some of the DJ Rels album by Madlib. He even does a house tune, actually. Do you want to hear Madlib doing a house tune? This is quite funny. Oh. There you go. The Madlib doing house. Insane album, by the way. DJ Rels album is just, and he pretended that it was somebody else. They pretended that DJ Rels was some guy who lives in the desert and, a recluse and all that. It was Madlib. And this was actually distributed and pressed by Goya. So this is like Madlib basically being really into the London stuff. And if you listen to the J-Lib album, there's a track called The Red, which is, it's Jay Dilla and Madlib together. And he says, peace to Showbiz, peace to AG, peace to maybe Questlove. And he says, peace to Seiji. So Seiji from Bugs in the Attic got a shout out on the Jay Dilla and Madlib album. I mean, bloody hell. You can't get bigger than that, can you? I don't know about you, but I wish Madlib had made more house. That's amazing. So the next thing I'm going to play you, it's off the album, and it's the first track, and it is probably the most mental track on the album, but I love it. And there was a DJ Rels mix that was released, and it was a WAV. It was you can find it online, I think, and it was just like Madlib playing all these tunes that he sampled for the album, and some great tunes on it. So this whole thing is just samples. So check this out. I think that's Weather Report. That But this is Madlib trying to make broken beat. But obviously it's Madlib. Right, stick with me. Wait for the drop. See, that's proper vibes for Have any of you heard yesterday's new quintet? That was Madlib pretending to be a jazz band. So he plays all the instruments on it. And it sounds pretty mad. But yeah, it's a similar era. This was the same kind of era. So you can hear similar kind of sound palette. So this one, this is like Carl Craig again for me. This is very Detroit feeling with the weird pad thing that comes in. It's hard to believe this, but me and my friends, we used to attempt to play these records in Nottingham. Well, we used to play this in like trendy bars in Nottingham with like proper kind of chavvy guys all kind of fighting and in shirts, and we were playing this kind of music. I'm not joking. And there was quite a lot of DJs in Nottingham who were into this kind of stuff, so there was like maybe 6 or 7 different people playing on the same night, not all playing obviously Madlib, but you know, playing some good stuff, you know. Other interesting thing is this is mastered by Dave Cooley, who, you know, did a lot of hip hop stuff. I think he did stuff for De La Soul. So, you know, to hear Broken Beat or an attempt at Broken Beat, I think this is all out of just like the 404, the SP 404 probably, because that's what Madlib was using at the time. I don't know, maybe an MPC. Remember, there's a whole new generation of kids into jazzy music and Broken Beat and all the London jazz stuff, and I don't think they know about this stuff at all, to be honest. From what I can hear that they're producing, they need to listen to some more of this kind of stuff. Yeah, I'll play the breakdown on this because it's proper like acid dawn shit. Check this out. basically Madlib doing techno, isn't it? Okay, so next up, I'm going to take you into my section of the sort of people that you can't imagine doing broken beat, or it's not that surprising, really. But there's a couple of curveballs. So yeah, disclaimer that this isn't really broken beat, but it's sort of it's on Head to Toe, this Italian label. But you'll never guess who this is. Oh my god, the DJ Rel's album. I just checked it out, Vinny. I didn't know it was that expensive. Okay, I won't rebuy it. Okay, so can anyone here guess who this is? Sick tune, right? It's Total Science. Yeah, Total Science made loads of kind of house tempos, jazzy, I don't know what you call it. It's not really broken beat. I'd say it's similar to what Hospital Records were doing at the time. Future jazz, or I don't know. Yeah, but the Total Science, like housey, broken beaty stuff, really good. I think it's better than their drum and bass, to be honest. More sort of sophisticated. Yeah, the other side of this is pretty nice as well. But I can hear it's total science. Like this sort of engineering, if that makes sense. Vinny, believe me, you'll be surprised who's made Broken Beat. Or, you know, something in the same route. I don't think this is Broken Beat. Okay, so who do you think this is? So look who's selling the total signs. Michael Reinboff, who runs Compost Records. Hello. Funny as well, a lot of these records, no one's selling them in the UK, which might mean no one bought it in the UK, but I often think it just means people in the UK like it more than other countries. Okay, do you know who this is? It's Riton. I don't know if you're familiar with Riton or Riton or whatever. If you look at the labels that he's been licensed to, it's not Broken Beat. See where it all went wrong. Ed Banger, Dim Mac. Okay, so the next track I'm going to play you is actually on the same record, and it is by your next masterclass guest, and it's Titonton Duvante and John Tejada together, and and it's on Sonar Collective, and it's from a long time ago. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I posted in, I think, the guest masterclass section. Titonton was in a band with, I think, Charles Noel and Todd Signs, and they were called. I can't remember what they were called, like Rhythmic something, but there's a really cool track I posted on YouTube, but it was never released by them. Sort of breakbeat, probably a little bit LFO kind of Sheffield kind of vibes on it from '92 or something. So yeah, Titonton was actually a drum and bass DJ for a long time. So it's funny, because something I share with him is obviously I was a drum and bass DJ for a long time as well. So it's interesting when you get all these, like, the Broken Beat guys were all jungle producers, and a lot of the people I like in Europe, like Mark Schneider, who runs Word and Sound, he was a big drum and bass guy. There's loads of people in Berlin. Like, for example, Watergate. Watergate was actually a drum and bass club for years. It only played drum and bass, Watergate. So yeah, and then obviously the fashion's changed. But can you imagine Watergate being a place where lots of, like, jungle was played? Not me. So you get the idea. But yeah, so I'm gonna bring proceedings to a close in a few minutes, but just trying to think of something really kind of crazy to play you. Not crazy, but something a bit more radical, maybe. I hope you've all enjoyed tonight. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to play you Calais Jean, which is by, I think, Mark Force. This is something to do with it. It's Black Eye, I think. Yeah, this is actually 4/4, this track, but you can count 4 through it, but yeah, it's the most ridiculous drum beat ever. I don't understand why I like it, but it's kind of unplayable almost. My mates used to laugh about it, you know, like we attempted to play it, but you know, it's kind of like almost, I don't know, really. I like it, but it's quite mad. Interesting. IG Culture is the vocal arranger. It seems like IG Culture is on a lot of tunes that you don't even know he's on. I thought this was Mark Foot. And this touches on the sort of Central American influence. There was a connection between like Costa Rica, believe it or not, and Cuba. So yeah, there was the Candela's All Stars, which was to do. There's a label called Alma Gamma or something, and the guy who ran that, he connected with Afronaut. So yeah, actually, I'll play you something off that. Some really cool kind of Cuban influenced broken beat stuff. And yeah, actually, I forgot about this Mark Mac EP that very hip hop influenced, actually. Mark Mac from 4 Hero. So yeah, that's Calais Jean. The track that me and my friends used to put on and kind of like go like, is anyone going to come up and tell us to stop playing this? You know, that's the funny thing. You know, you realise that when you're a DJ in Nottingham was no one noticed. You know, you could play all sorts of stuff. You know, I used to play like, I don't know, like Heal Yourself and Move by Theo Parrish, which is like super deep. You know, and play that in some like, you know, trendy bar with everyone drinking. So yeah, this is on Mark Mac's label, Twisted Funk. Great label. So yeah, he did this EP of this kind of style, Mark Mac. See, everyone always goes about Digo, but I think Mark Mac is actually underrated. Was in 4 Hero, Reinforced Records, if you don't know. Yeah, this is definitely co-op. This is designed for co-op. Co-op was amazing, by the way. Like a really mixed crowd. And there was some quite old people there. Like, you know, 50-year-old people, which back in those days seemed old to me. So yeah, stuff like this is just fun, isn't it? I like this EP. It's kind of, it's a bit cheeky, you know? It's not the deep stuff. So yeah, this kind of rinse out stuff really, it's just bangers. So yeah, I wanted to play you some of this Candela All-Stars kind of stuff, which is, I really like it. So it's, I guess, Cuban or, you know, influenced. I had it. Oh my God, how annoying. Give me a sec. Definitely around here somewhere. Ah, yes. Phew. Okay, right. Watch this. Look at I love this cover. You know, it's like dancing. You know. So yeah, I played the Sinbad mix on this quite a lot. But the one I really like is Do Re Mi. It's Brocky featuring 4Hero, Naught's Rumba Dub, which is Afronaut, obviously, but it says produced by Mark Mack, Orin Walters, so, and Emilio Velez, which might be the guy who runs that Amalgama label, I don't know. But I'll play the Sinbad mix it's not really broken beat, but it's cool. I played this at the Big Chill Festival when I did this like radio station closing set, which was the last. If you've not heard it, go and Google it. It was the last actual thing happening at the whole festival, so it was really good because everyone was there. So it was like, you know, like people that you'd seen all weekend and bumped into, they were all there at the end. So it was a great experience for me. I mean, it's a little bit cheesy, this track, but it works in a festival. But the one I really like, I think it's a much more kind of deep tune, is the second one. I'll stick it on, but I think definitely Mark Max had a bit of influence on this one. I think this is a great example, though, of two cultures colliding. This is a great record.
Se ha puesto buena, óyeme su decadencia, maye. Oye, mira la rumba buena, de su decadencia. Armonía, compás, de su decadencia. La rumba es lo más sublime para el alma divertir. Armonía, compás, de su decadencia. Se debiera de morir quien por buena no le exprime. Armonía, compás, de su decadencia. Óyeme su decadencia, mayeme su.
So I'd say that concludes tonight's crate digging, folks. Hope that was enjoyable for you. Yeah, just trying to. The whole point of these sessions is I'm trying to expand your horizons. So it might not be the music that you normally like or listen to, but that's probably going to make you a better producer. I personally like most styles of music if they're well executed, so I would heartily recommend you listen to as much non-dance music as you can, because obviously dance music came from live music, so pretty much most of the rhythms that you're trying to create, the interesting rhythms, come from, you know, Latin music, dub, you know, funk, jazz, etc. So yeah, hope you enjoyed tonight, folks. And yeah, next week it's mentoring. So I've moved group 2 to Monday, so I'm going to try a new day. And yeah, group 1 is on Tuesday and group 3 is on Wednesday, I think. So, see, it's all confused me now because I've changed that one day. But yeah, so see you all next week. Big shouts to everyone who bought a t-shirt, by the way. Really appreciate that. I have to say, posting them out individually, getting people's addresses and collecting the money is it's a lot of work. But you know, having a fulfillment center would be great, but I think you can't really do that if you've only got like 15, 20 t-shirts. You can't really outsource it, can you? You know.
No.
So yeah. Any thoughts? Any? Did you enjoy that? Was there any inspiration there for you as producers or not? Let me know.
Yeah, loads of new stuff, and some old stuff, but all new.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good
That's
to
kinda
hear. I can't stress highly enough how, you know, like to make good any dance music, I think you should really try and be influenced a bit by some jazz, you know, like, or jazzy, you know, because no matter what, I mean, unless you're wanting to make sort of like really kind of gothy, kind of trancey stuff, which, you know, you're welcome to. But even like new wave or goth music, I mean, it still had some mad rhythms. If you listen to New Beat, you know, the Belgian New Beat stuff, you know, it had quite a lot of polyrhythms in it. So I think it's like almost like it's the same rhythms in a lot of dance music. It's just a different sound palette, if that makes sense. Yeah. So big shouts to everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And please give me some suggestions for the next session. I've got a huge record collection and I'm really happy to focus on one style of music. So if there's something that you really want to hear, you know, hopefully I'll have some records. And also feel free to get involved yourselves if you want to share some music. I'm always really happy to hear, you know, what you're into. So, you know, feel free to pick a genre that you have a lot of the music of. You know, we could do, you know, weirdo underground house music. You know, we could do garagey techno. We could do new wave. We could do reggae. You know, we could do, you know, US hip hop. Whatever you
I was
want.
going to say, have you done a hip hop one yet?
No, not really. I can't remember. Vinny, I mean, you've been here for a while. Did I do a hip hop one?
Not yet. We've done funk, prescription balance,
Peppy Braddock.
this,
Yeah, and then some various kind. We did an Italo set one, I remember, for well, you know, a bit. But yeah. Hip hop. You know, I'm.
yeah, that could work.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a hell of a lot of hip hop. I mean, I've mainly got US hip hop, so I don't really have much non-US hip hop. I'm afraid. I did have lots on cassette, But my cassettes are all at my parents' house. I hope. I think they might have even thrown them away, which is kind of sad because I've got Digital Underground, Sex Packets. I've got all the Public Enemy albums. I've got all these great albums on cassette.
Oh man.
Yeah. So big shouts everyone to. So yeah, we could do hip hop next time. That's fine with me.
Yeah, that worked for me. That was one of my first loves. That was one of my earliest wow moment was oh god, an older sibling playing something from Straight Outta Compton, and it had a lot of swearing in it, and I was only about 8, and I was like, what is this? So that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I the first record I ever bought was a 7-inch single of "You Can't Touch This" by MC Hammer.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because I didn't realize that it was Super Freak by Rick James, and but I used to do this thing called needle drag loops where I would play the record and I would pull the needle back. So I would go like down, 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 down. And then I developed a technique where I could lift the needle up and put it down on the same point of the record and repeat the phrase. So yeah, I totally destroyed my MC Hammer, You Can't Touch This. And I think I also had things like it might not have been the first record, but I had We're On Our Own, which was I think Ghostbusters 2, Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
Our own. That I had all this kind of dodgy, like it was never that hardcore. I also had Numero Uno by Starlight, I remember, which is probably a bit later. But I think that was Danielle Daverly, I think did that, and I don't know if any of you remember Deep Heat 89.
Yes.
I mean that was.
I think I might have that here somewhere.
Yeah, it was like Feel the Fire. I think that was the sort of catch, the little. But do you know what Deep Heat 89 had on it? It had Humanoid by Stack of Humanoid Intruder, which is Gary Duggan from Future Sound of London, I think. Yeah. And by the way, Future Sound of London have a Bandcamp, and he's put some unreleased Humanoid tracks on there recently. So I'm going to check them out. I've not heard them yet. But yeah, Deep Heat 89, big album.
Some of those Deep Heat albums were all right because, like you say, you'd get a bit of techno, a bit of house, a bit of hip hop, and you'd get a nice little mix of stuff. Yeah. On the more accessible side normally.
Yeah, it was good days. I remember going to high school to the Christmas party or whatever, and me and my friend Kenny, we dressed up as rappers, and we wore like we had full tracksuits, and then we had records. Like I drilled a hole in a record and put like a fat lace through the record, and I was walking about with a record on, like. Oh my god. Like we were so into hip hop at high school, like we kind of. It was interesting though because you think about it, like how else would you know about that guy who went to buy a car in Bensonhurst? I can't remember his name, but he got murdered, and like some like black guy went to an Italian neighborhood to buy a car and ended up getting murdered. You hear all these sort of stories from New York or whatever or LA, and it was like kind of what like folklore or I don't know what you call it really, like local tales being passed on, if you think about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a university dissertation or two been written about that, the connection between the griots from Africa who troll traditional stories and Ice Cube with the sawn-off shotgun, yeah. But so hip hop. Paul, I guess you've got some hip hop, right?
I've got one or two bits, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would you say, just off the top of your head? I mean, it's hard to say like top 3 or something, but can you name a couple of hip hop bands that you're really into, Paul?
Well, if you've got to pick top 3, you've got to pick the obvious ones like Tribe. Any of the guys out the Native Tongues, and I know that's lots of bands, but if I lump all them into one, but then Souls of Mischief, Farside, Ghetto Boys, anything Gangstar related.
Yep.
It's all Yeah, you can't pick top 3 out of all of that lot, and there's loads more I haven't mentioned, and I'm sure you guys could name some as well.
Do you ever notice, Paul, or anyone else, that I think Jerry the Damager actually got the best beats out of Premiere? Did you notice that? I think
That
Gangstar
Return of the Math or Return of the Wrath and stuff.
the Gangstar beats weren't always. I don't know. They were all right, but they were a bit more poppy. I thought sometimes Gangstar.
They always had a couple of gems in there, but yeah, the Gangster albums were okay. The Group Home stuff that DJ
Yeah, man, Living Proof.
Fucking hardcore, that stuff. That is proper.
Yeah, do you know what Group Home means?
It's like it's where you go when you're an orphan, basically.
Yeah, supported accommodation. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, totally, man. It's like, yeah,
Main Source.
Yeah, Main Source, Breaking Atoms. I've got that downstairs. I've got it on double vinyl. I've got quite a few hip hop albums on double vinyl that weren't released on double vinyl, so I think they might be bootlegs. I've also got Jay Dilla. I'll play it next time. It's a Jay Dilla remixes compilation, and it's a complete and utter bootleg. But it's got some stuff on there that I've never heard before, and it's got one track by the which was him. I think him and Q-Tip.
Yeah,
there was a few of them. It was
was it Shaheed?
The other guy out of Tribe Not Five.
Raphael Sadiq, wasn't he? And
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, I've got this track called by the and it's called "Put It Down," and it's on this compilation, and it's like it sounds unmastered, and it's all sort of distorted, like so it's not. It doesn't sound like it was meant to be released like that. It's such a sick tune, though. And again, I want to say, by the way, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but I think there's a big line between the sort of ecstasy, deep house sound and that era of hip hop. When Dilla and Quest were doing these kind of filtered down Rhodes noises, like they, like if you listen to the Love Movement by A Tribe Called Quest, it's basically a blueprint for just Motor City Drum Ensemble, Detroit deep house. It's the same thing, kind of filter. Mikhail, you're nodding your head, aren't you? Because you know what I mean. I think there's a massive because it's the same like all those house guys, were listening to hip hop,
Yeah.
So yeah, great. But I'm very happy to move into hip hop, and because all this. By the way, have any of you heard the Motorbase album?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, Mikhail, have you heard the Motorbase album? I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Is it from 94, 95, something?
96. It's called Pansol.
Yeah.
Seriously, that to me is a massive, like, if you're going to connect house and hip hop, that is probably one of the key moments for me because they were La Funk Mob, So it was Philippe Zar from La Funk, Philippe Zar, rest in peace, by the way, and Etienne de Cressy, who obviously went on to do Super Discount and all that. Man, that Motorbase album blew our heads off. Amazing. Yeah, I mean, that is a class album, and again, sampling. I think it is a really great. This is all a sort of, for me, a sort of massive kind of thumbs up to sampling.
Yeah. The album that blew me away from that time was the second Diggable Planets album, Blowout Comb.
Yeah,
that is unbelievable, just from start to finish, the whole thing.
Yeah, is that the one with Nickelback of Funk on it?
No, that was the first one.
Oh, right, okay. Wow, yeah, I always find it hard with a lot of these groups, Paul. I don't know if you know what I mean. I get the first and second albums mixed up.
Right. Yeah, no, but they're both good albums, but the second one in particular, as I said, for me, it just great album.
Yeah, great. I'm really excited. And so could any of you next time, do you think you could maybe share some tracks, maybe?
If I get my IT running, I'm more than happy to.
If you want, if it makes it easier, you could try play. I could share the screen and you could just play stuff off YouTube if you want. I mean, it doesn't have to be on wax, but obviously the vinyl, always going to sound better, Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to help out with others and stuff. Yeah.
It'd be great to hear your digs, and hopefully, because I think with these sessions as well, people watch them on the archive, and I think it's just cool to have everyone just sharing their favorite tracks. Really, that was my idea with it. Really, so step up. Feel free to. Okay, cool. Well, let's call it a day tonight. Thanks a lot for joining me, and see you guys next week for the mentoring.
Nice one.
Cheers, guys. See you later.